If you're a founder, you're closing deals, running the business, and if you're also trying to make 100 cold calls a day all at the same time, chances are something's going to break eventually. Which is why in this video, I'm going to run through exactly when is the right time to hire your first cold caller, how to train them up from scratch, what sort of things to look out for, and just talk you through some of the mistakes that if you get wrong are going to ultimately cost you months worth of time. Let's just dive in. Now, the questions you need to ask yourself are first and foremost, have you actually proven that the campaign works? And I'm not just talking about other people in your industry are cold calling, therefore it must work. I'm talking about, have you actually ran the campaign yourself and have you personally generated meetings from doing it? And if you're unsure about things like your conversion rates or your numbers, you shouldn't even be thinking about hiring. You need to figure out your own numbers first and prove the concept, prove that it works personally. Next, if you've done that and you've proven the campaign works, chances are you should have a good baseline script for these people to follow. If you're trying to bring someone in and they have no idea what to say or how to pitch it, again, they're only going to struggle. So just making sure you've got an actual framework they can follow, again, something you need to build before you hire. Number 3 is, can you afford 3 months worth of salary with no ROI? Chances are if you hire a cold caller, they're not going to produce any form of ROI within month 1. And chances are probably not month 2 either. And it's only really month 3 when you start to see some of the results compound. And if you don't budget for this, what you'll end up doing is firing them in month 2 out of frustration. And you would have wasted all that money, convince yourself hiring just doesn't work for your business. And it's a lose-lose situation. So if you're going to run this and you're going to hire someone, budget for it properly with salary, commission, and the tools, and just stick to it. Number 4 is, have you actually got the time to manage this person? You've got to think, especially for the first 30 days of hiring, it's not just a machine that you can set up and leave them to their own devices. They're going to need some form of time commitment from you if you want to get the best results. So if you're running around trying to manage loads of different things and don't have the proper time to commit to something like this, again, you need to rethink it or just try and save some time somewhere so that you have the opportunity to train these people up properly. So if all of these 4 sound like they're covered, chances are you're probably in a pretty good position to hire someone. Now, the next thing you need to start thinking about is what to look out for when you're doing the interview section. Let's jump into it. We've got 2 sides here. One is hiring for and one is don't hire for. Most founders look for the wrong things here. They look for either a perfect CV or someone that has 5 to 10 years sales experience and think that that's going to tell them the whole story. But the truth is, as always, things aren't always what they seem, and I'll go through a few of those so you understand what I mean. Up first, I've got coachability. So the number 1 thing you want to be looking out for is, can this person actually be trained up properly to cold call for your business? Not how much sales experience have they got on paper, but can they learn, can they take on feedback, and can they actively improve? Trust me, if I had £1 for every single time I saw someone with loads of sales experience that I trying to train up in how we cold call and they just flat out couldn't get it, compared to someone with absolutely no sales experience whatsoever, but just a really keen ability to learn and take on feedback, I'll tell you what, the coachability aspect beats it every single time. Second down, you've got their tone and energy. The truth is, you can't train someone to have a good phone voice. You can't train them to sound warm on the phone or sound interesting. It's just something they've got to naturally have. So whenever you're looking out for candidates, don't just look for a perfect CV or someone with loads of cold calling experience. Instead, think, okay, is this someone you would actually want to listen to if they were cold calling? Next, you have got listening ability. Again, similar to coachability, are these people actually listening to what you're saying? Not just a case of they have loads of industry knowledge, because again, you can train someone to have industry knowledge, but can they actually listen to and retain the information that you give them about your specific business? Because if they don't listen and just default to stuff they learned in a previous job, then again, they're going to be a great cold caller for someone else's business, but probably not a great cold caller for your own business. And lastly, you've got curiosity. This is a little bit of an interesting one. When you're interviewing people, you want to look out for, are they asking questions? And better yet, are they asking really good questions about your business? Not just someone who acts really confident and pretends to know it all, but someone that's genuinely eager to learn from you guys and actually learn how to improve his cold calls those people are naturally brilliant at sales, and that's something you should always look out for. Once you have these 4 things together, you then need to understand how your interview process is actually going to look like. Next up, you've got the interview framework. This is actually the exact same framework that we use over at Everest Telesales to screen our cold callers to see whether or not we think they'll be good at the job. Firstly, when a candidate comes through, the first thing you want to do is take a quick glance at their CV, see if they've got relevant experience, and if they do, don't just email them asking to set up an interview, but instead I want you to call them straight away. And the things you want to be listening out for here are, do they sound warm on the phone? Are they answering questions? Do they sound intelligent? Or are they sounding nervous, a little bit laid back, a little bit glum? Because you've got to remember, if they sound like that on the phone call with you, they're going to sound like that on the phone calls with prospects. What I want you to do is, as you phone screen them, just close your eyes and really listen to their voice and think to yourself, if this person cold called you completely out of the blue, is this someone you listen to? Do they sound like they know what they're talking about? Or is it a phone call that you'd hear, listen to for 30 seconds, and then just put the phone down on? That's what you need to be looking for, and if they pass that, move them on to a booked interview. Once you've moved them to the interview section, typically what I like to do with these is just a 15-minute role play. Send your framework script to them 24 hours ahead of time, and just tell them to review it, learn from it, and get really comfortable using it. And when they jump on the call, I want you to just role play with them. Pretend that person cold calls you out of the blue, and it's your job to give them a few objections like, we're not interested, or yes, send me an email, and just see how they react to them. Are they able to handle your objections and ultimately book you onto a call, or are they struggling and sort of mumbling and forgetting their words? Drill it a few times with them, give them a few goes of it just to see how they react. And again, look out for, are they taking on board feedback? Are they learning after every call, or is it just more or less the same things that they keep doing over and over again? One thing to do as well, if you really want to test these guys out, is once they've finished the role play, if it's all sounding really good, just throw them into the deep end and give them a completely brand new product to sell. Give them no prep time and just tell them, okay, you're going to sell me websites now, pitch me a website, and just see how they react. Are they able to think on their feet? Are they able to just make a cold call to you straight away? Or are they unable to make one without a proper framework script to follow? And again, it's just a little thing to look out for to see how switched on they are. Hopefully once that's all gone well, the next thing you need to do is not another interview or a 5-stage process like I see a lot of companies do. It's simply just to get them in for a paid trial day. Again, give them the script you gave them before, give them a real list of prospects, and just have them do a full day of cold calling in front of you. And I promise you, you will learn so much more from that one trial day after putting them in front of real life prospects than you would from 100 online interviews or 100 face-to-face interviews. You are seeing what these guys are actually like in practice for a day, and you'll just be able to get such a good insight into whether or not you'd want this guy calling for your business. And at the end of the day, simple test to ask yourself is, could you listen to this guy make cold calls for 8 hours per day? Or are you cringing and a little bit, hesitating? If you're confident they could meet calls for 8 hours, bang, hire them. If you're hesitating, then just don't. Once you've found the right candidate, the next thing to look out for is how you're going to run the next 90 days of the campaign. This is where some of the time commitment starts to come in. For the first 2 weeks, you basically want to be supervising them for the entire thing. For the first couple of days, I just get them listening to some call recordings from either some of your calls or one of your best cold callers' calls, and just have them review, shadow a few employees, and just learn how it is you guys actually conduct cold calls there. Once they have a good handle on it, the rest of the 2 weeks is just going to be about slowly ramping up their cold calls. So start them small, maybe 15 to 25 cold calls per day, reviewing all of their calls and doing a daily debrief, and just slowly ramping those numbers up by the end. By the end of 2 weeks, you should have them doing about 100 cold calls a day, and again, just slowly ramping up to that point. From days 15 to 45, you should start to see them become a little bit more independent. They've kind of got into the rhythm of things, they start to know what they're doing, they've got an idea of how to exactly cold call for your business, but that doesn't mean just leave them completely in the dark. You just want to start tracking some of their metrics and doing a weekly one-on-one review call with them. So just going through their numbers, how many calls are they making, how many conversations they're having, and just give them some actionable takeaways. Where could they improve? Where are they doing well? And again, your main focus here wants to be about building up good habits from the beginning and trying to eliminate as many bad habits as possible. If you're keeping on top of all this stuff, by day 30, they should start to be booking in their first meetings after their pipelines start to come in, their callbacks and things like that. And that's when you'll start to see the fruits of your labor. But one common mistake to watch out for is what I see a lot of founders do is just start to get a little bit lazy, a little bit busy, and start to neglect some of their new starters. Again, you're only going to be hurting yourself in the long run, so make sure you stick to these weekly one-on-one review calls for the first sort of month and a half. By days 46 to 90, you should honestly just be measuring them on performance. By this point, you should have a really strong handle on how many calls they're making, how many conversations they're having, and you can even start comparing them against your own figures or some of your other sales team. And this is the point where you start to see how good of a cold caller they actually are and where they sort of stack on the leaderboard. And if you're reviewing their numbers and they're just nowhere near your other sales team or some of your calls, then chances are if they're not doing it by day 90, they're probably not going to be able to do it going forward. And it's probably a case of this person just isn't the right fit and it's time to start thinking about alternatives. That said, if they are hitting the numbers and they are performing really, really well, lock them in as much as possible, right? Trust me, good callers are really hard to come by. So make sure you treat them well, you're giving them plenty of commission, and they'll stick with you for a long time. Now, past day 90 is probably the hardest part, and it's when you need to start thinking about when to fire someone versus when to coach them based on some of their numbers. So you should be coaching these people when they are hitting some metrics, but not all of them. Let's say they're making loads of calls, having loads of conversations, but there's just a little part there where they're not able to book onto meetings. Chances are you can probably coach that into them and just get that last piece of the puzzle. But again, it goes back to things to look out for when you're hiring these people. Did they have good coachability when you originally hired them? Or are they going to be one of those people where they just make excuses all the time? Because if they make excuses, they're probably not a right fit, and that's not going to change going forward. So again, that's the one thing you want to look out for. Can you coach these people and can you lead them to success? Or are they just consistently not taking on board feedback, making excuses, and ultimately dragging the morale of the team down? The mistake most founders make here is waiting too long to fire somebody that just simply isn't performing. You'll know by day 60 whether or not someone's actually performing, and chances are if you give it another 30 or 60 or even 90 days, they're not going to magically pull it out of a barrel. You need to just rip the band-aid off and get rid of them as soon as you know that it's just not working out. If you want more of a breakdown on how to scale exactly from 0 employees all the way up to 25 plus, I've linked the cold call scaling roadmap in the description below. It's a completely free PDF that just walks through all of this in a little bit more detail. Like I said, completely free, just my gift to you. Check it out in the description and just let me know what you think. Now, with all of that said, that's the exact framework on how to hire your first cold caller, and it ultimately means you're not going to waste months and months and loads of money trying to train someone up that just simply isn't performing. Stay tuned because I'm going to be doing loads more breakdowns like this in the future. So if you're liking what you see, subscribe and look out for the next one.